John Maloney, the president of hockey operations for the Calgary Flames, is on the road trip. And during the first intermission of the broadcast, he had a nice chat with Sportsnet's Brendan Parker. We know Parks very well. Parks is a really good broadcaster, really good interviewer. And I thought, Parks asked the questions I think that everyone kind of wanted asked. And, but if we come across critical of here, I'll just straight away, Parks, we love you. It was a good interview by the person doing the interviewing. Robert, what did you think? What were your takeaways from the intermission interview that was on the Sportsnet broadcast?
So this is the first time someone in hockey ops has talked to the fans through the first 21 games of the season. So, and it's been rough. People are not happy, both with the on ice product and with NHL insiders and reporters saying that the Flames aren't willing to go into a full rebuild and they're not willing to listen to trade offers on some of their top players right now. It's very frustrating. So, when I heard Don Maloney was going to be on the broadcast, the first thing I thought was, okay, this is a chance for the front office staff, the guy who's leading the hockey operations department, to bring some confidence to the fan base that, hey, we understand the situation. We know what's going on. Don't worry. We got the situation handled when we have a plan in place. I felt like that did not happen.
And I believe we have some clips.
Yes,
you can tee them up.
Jack, play the first one. Let's go.
How would you assess the first quarter of this season for your club?
Well, it's been terribly disappointing. The way it works, in the summertime, we review the prior season. We go to ownership with a plan to move forward. When we looked at last season's team, we had a good finish the last 3 months. We thought we could come in and build on that. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone our way so far. I look at the period we played. The way we have to play all the time is that intense, hard to play against. That was our reputation last year. We're hard out. And this year we haven't been able to kind of, we've seen flashes of it, but certainly not enough. So, but we're not throwing in the towel. We know we've got a lot of work to do. There's 3/4 of the season left. And we just have to keep working. And we know we've got good players here. We've got a good veteran group. We've got some younger players that push. We've got a great young goaltending tandem. But we have to put it all together. We talk about it, but at the end of the day, there's no red. You don't get medals or red ribbons in this league. It's winning or losing, and we haven't done enough winning.
Let me ask you a question, Robert. He can read the standings as much as anyone else can. Did anyone really expect him to use the phrase, we're throwing in the towel 21 and a half games in?
No, I mean, as the president of the team, you can't say that, because now the thing is, when you're doing an interview like this, you have to appease players, you have to appease fans, your coworkers, your ownership group. There's a lot of stakeholders who you're trying to send a message to. And if he comes out and says, the season's over, well, that's telling the players that you might as well quit. And you can't do that as the president. But at the same time, he's trotting out the same company line that they did last season. We have a good veteran team. We're a hardworking team, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, every team in the NHL is a hardworking team. You need more than that to build, to become a contender. It felt a little tone deaf. The fans.
He did admit it was a disappointing start to the season. So well,
obviously, yeah,
he started off on the right note there.
My thing, though, is just the fans know what's going on. Calgary is a very savvy hockey market with a lot of smart fans. We all know what's happening. And for him to come out and say, we have a good team, we have really good veterans, we're still in the mix. It's like, you're lying to us.
He never said in the mix. He said there's still 3/4 of the season left.
Well, he might as well said that.
That was a factual statement. 3/4 of the season left. And I believe heading into this game, when you factor in points percentage, they were somewhere around 12 to 13 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, and you take a look at like playoff odds, at the Athletic and Dom's model, they're like 2% right now. So to me, it's just tell the truth. Tell the fans.
They were 1.5% heading into tonight.
Oh yeah, not great. What did you think of that answer?
I mean, I think the problem is I will say this, we're basically watching them play a poker game right now. And so I don't think it would really I think they've been very clear, like Rasmus or not, Michael Backlund during the European Player Tour flat out said, yeah, they're going to trade Anderson. And yeah, they're going to trade Anderson. I think that's sort of a foregone conclusion. He's on a time pressure. You have a time pressure to move Anderson. Everything we're hearing is fairly far apart on contract talks. these are not surprising statements. It was kind of refreshing actually to hear Backlund say it in so many words.
Mhm.
But other than that, when you're like, yeah, it makes sense. We can all read Puckpedia. We kind of know when contracts end. Sure, that makes sense. Other than that, I mean, everything we're hearing from insider, case in point, Pierre LeBrun's excellent, his rumblings column at The Athletic today, dropped. I think today the Athletic either yesterday or today dropped their trade board, and Anderson's number one because of course he is, and then Coleman is on it with a year left in his contract after this year, and Kadri with several years left is 21, I think. And with both those guys, the messaging we've heard from the insider class has been, Flames aren't really in a hurry to move anybody. Which it's like when when you're at the food court. You're a little bit hungry, but you're not starving yet, so you don't really need to make a decision. So you're like, let's see what's good out there. You're willing to listen to offers, but you're not really gonna just rush and shove people out of the way to get to Taco Bell because you're hungry right now. And the way they're communicating everything, the tone of that interview, kind of spoke to me as, we're doing our thing. If you want to make an offer, pick up the phone, but we're not in a hurry to do much, man.
Yeah. The thing for me is I really hope Craig Conroy's gone out there and said, hey, we're open for business. And between now and the trade deadline, this is what I'm looking for. And if you meet it, great, we'll make a move. But like you said, I'm not in a hurry to do it, but I really hope Craig's going out there and saying, hey, I want a first round pick and a top prospect for Nazem Kadri. Establish that with the people who are going to be in that marketplace, and then just let a bidding war happen over the next few months here. That's what I want to see. But if you listen to every single NHL insider, they're all saying literally the exact same thing, that they're not willing to do this right now. They're not willing to even really entertain trade topics right now. That doesn't make sense to me.
I think you're hearing the words, not hearing the message behind the words. It's, when you hear Darren Dreger say that people around ownership are telling him that they're not in a hurry to trade Nazem Kadri, for example,
he said he doesn't want to trade Nazem
what's
Kadri.
In brackets behind that is at the prices they're being offered. And so,
but that doesn't really sound like what's going on to me. When you listen to Dreger, he's basically saying ownership does not want to trade Nazem Kadri. And when Flames fans hear that during the season they're having, and considering they haven't made the playoffs the last 3 years and the future does not look great with this current core group, you roll your eyes at that. You're like, come on, everybody can see. Everybody in the hockey world can see that this team desperately needs to rebuild and they need to move on from these veterans and take advantage of this. And everything we hear from the management and ownership is that, you know what, we actually kind of like this group and we want to be competitive next year. And
devil's advocate, we've never heard from ownership. We have never heard from ownership.
Okay. Yeah.
I've covered the team for 15 years. I've never directly heard from ownership. You hear
secondhand from ownership.
Yeah, but
But like Pierre LeBrun said it in his article today that ownership doesn't want to trade Kadri. Darren Dreger said it. Every insider is saying it. And now you're hearing Peg Notice say that there's a disconnect. And, to me, that screams ownership wants to keep this thing going and they want to keep the train rolling. And maybe management wants to take a step back and do something in the future. But
I believe we have more clips.
Let's roll it.
Does the start change any of the direction for the club from a management standpoint, maybe opportunities or whatever it might be?
No, not really. We're always taking a long-term point of view. Zane's a good example of it. He came in last year at the end of the year and he had such an impressive game at the end of the year. But you come into training camp, he was dealing with a little injury, and I think he got behind the eight. But I really think this injury might be a blessing for him. He gets a chance to reset, take a deep breath. Not everybody comes in the league at 19 years old and is a star. He's going to be a terrific player. He just needs some more time for some physical and development, and then understand the league. And so we just everything we do, and Craig, we look at it long term. Is this the right place for him? And are we doing the right thing for him? People think we make decisions. The players often make the decision for us. And hopefully Zane will get back, and we'll see where it goes from here. Well,
Shane Perek. I like that.
I mean, it sounds like a name.
What do you think of that answer?
I mean, again, it's very much what we've heard before. I mean, it's sort of reusing a Trelivingism of you take your cues from your team, which we've heard in various forms from various executives for the Flames. Hell, I've heard it dating back to Al Coates. I mean, yeah, you take your cues from the team, and when you're like, I don't know, I think when you're the team that the Flames are this season and you're behind the 8 ball, like I will, as much as I'm playing devil's advocate, I will fundamentally agree with you with the premise that, like, okay, let's be honest here. If they make 0 trades whatsoever this year, they're still, based on the start they've gotten off to, there is a very good chance they're well positioned for the draft lottery, making 0 more moves. It is virtually impossible to dig out from this kind of a hole, even if everyone starts playing the way they did last year. I think heading into this game, to get to 94 points, they had to play 664 hockey. And I believe 2 Flames teams in franchise history have played that over an 82 game clip or an 80 game clip. I think one of them was the 87-88 Flames, which won the President's Trophy and were the best team in franchise history. And I think the other team that was second in that ranks was the 21-22 Flames.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Either that or it was the 21-22 Flames. So yeah, you do take your cues from the team, and I do think they've been taking a long-term view of things. I don't think, like this year, I don't think the plan was, oh boy, golly, they're gonna stay in the mix and then trade everything with the kitchen sink out if they were close to get over the line. I think they looked at last year's team, went, okay, Frost with a full training camp and a good summer probably feels better about where he is. I think he's been better. Farabee, same thing. Parekh comes in. Maybe he has some growing pains in the first half. I don't think they could have anticipated the injuries, how physically overwhelmed he's been at times. But I
want
think
Zary to step up.
Yeah, I think if you look at as much as a lot of last year's team was, good Lord, they got some good bounces last year. A lot of guys had good years, but a lot of guys that had good years were young and could conceivably continue trending upward. So I don't think you had to squint too hard to see them take a step. But I would also argue that the step they would take would be going from barely missing the playoffs to barely making the playoffs. I think that was sort of the maturation process they would see. And then maybe next summer you would entertain a Coleman move. Like, say this year you play the year, get close, try to get in over the line. If you do, great. If you don't, it's a good experience for the kids. You trade Anderson for whatever you can get for him, ideally a first and yada, yada, yada. And then summer, if you get good offers for Coleman, good. You move Coleman and put in a kid. If you don't have any kids that are pushing him out right away, maybe you hold on to Coleman and do the same thing you did with Anderson and trade him in the summer, in the deadline or whatever. Because, as much as Anderson didn't have a great year last year, I still think teams would be lining up for a right shot defenseman. Same with Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman could play on my team any day of the week. I don't, if Blake Coleman is wearing another sweater, I don't think it'll be because anyone with a Flames resume has any ill will. I think it's just business. I think he wears a letter for a reason. He's very well regarded. But at the same time, when you get off to the start that you do, I don't think you say it changes everything, Brendan. But I also don't think you go, it doesn't change. I think you gain the ability to do some of the things the Flames are currently doing. Like, they have a 23-year-old defenseman playing in their top 4 with their best defenseman right now. And turnover aside, I thought Jan Kuznetsov's been very good tonight. He's been very good through his first 8 games this year. I'm pretty sure he's going to play 10 games and he'll lose his waiver exemption because he's been good. But if you don't get out to an ugly start, you probably don't feel like you can audition Jan Kuznetsov, right? If you don't get out to a bad start, you probably don't feel like you can audition Sam Morton, right? If you don't get off to a bad start, you don't feel like you can claim Johnny Beecher off waivers and then, let's see how he does. So I don't know. I would have said very similar things, but I can see why some fans would be kind of nonplussed by some of the phraseology.
The line that I didn't like is when he said, the players make decisions for us, or sometimes the players make decisions for us. And, you take your cues from your team. I don't agree with that. I think if you have a long-term plan, I think you stick to it, even if you do have a miracle season like the Flames did last year. In my opinion, I wrote an article about this last year. I thought the Flames were a bad hockey team that was being held up by a really good goaltender and a hot start. They were not a good team. Between November 1st and March 1st, it was about 75% of the season. They were dead last in goals scored by about 15. The next closest team to them was the Nashville Predators. Like they were a bad team last year, but Dustin Wolf held them in there. So when I hear him say, oh, like, you take your cues from your team. Well, if you do that, then you say, oh, this is a 96-point team last year. Like we missed the playoffs by 1 point. They were a good team. Let's keep going with this group. But if you actually like dive into it, you look at it, they were not a very good team last year. They weren't a very good team the year before. That's where you need the long-term vision. That's where you need to stick to that long-term plan, because it just feels like they're delaying the inevitable each year as we continue to get closer to the opening of Scotia Place. Like it just feels like they're going to have to rebuild here, and they just continue to push it out. And then it's a little frustrating. And for this year, like for me, it's not about just getting into the draft lottery. It's also about collecting more assets for the future as well. So number one, if you trade a Kadri, you trade Anderson, maybe even a Coleman, then you really bottom out. Then you really give yourself a good position in the lottery. And then on top of that, you also get probably additional first round picks. You probably get additional young players. And then it just kind of continues to build for the time Scotia Place opens for the first or second year when you hope to be a contender. That's I think what Flames fans want to see. They just want to see that long-term plan being put into place and not change it every single year, where it's, oh, we got 96 points, we're going to change our plan. Oh, now we got 60 points, now we're going to change our plan to this. And then we're going to get back to 85 points. Oh, maybe we're actually decent, we're going to change our plan again. It's kind of what it feels like is going on in the front office a little bit.
Do we have more clips, or is that all we got?
I think we got one more.
One more, okay.
We're not rushing these players, and that's why I know everybody wants this rebuild a little quicker than
he said it.
Rebuild,
he said it.
Retooled, see the young players, but we're just determined not to throw young players in before they're ready. It doesn't work. It's no good for your culture. We go into the season, we want to win hockey games. We expect to be a playoff team. That's how you have to enter in our minds every season. Obviously, we're 20 plus games in. We are always reassessing, reevaluating. So we're just, we want to, we're going to show up the next two periods and hopefully win them. And then we're going to go back home and play Dallas. We've got a team people want to watch and be proud of. And I think last year, the identity we established as this hard-working, competitive team, that's who we are as we evolve and bring in more young players into our system. So when they're ready, they're going to get a chance.
Yeah, part of me kind of felt bad for him.
Well, honestly, Craig's better with the media. Honestly, Craig should probably be doing those interviews moving forward. But the one thing in there that Maloney said that kind of stood out to me was, we want to build a team that the city's proud of, that our fans are proud of. And I'd be curious to put it out to the chat here. Are you proud of this Calgary Flames team right now? Are you proud of the current group and also the direction they're going in? That's something I'd like to hear from the fans.
I latched on to a different part of the same sentence, to be honest with you. I think the beginning of that sentence was, we want to build a team people want to watch and be proud of. Last year, if you want to be completely honest, the Flames you call them a bad team. I would call them a respectable team. They were in every game. They were a tough out. To be charitable, sometimes they were not the most exciting hockey team in the world. And I think especially when if you're a fan, a new fan, someone in your early 20s, early 30s, you're probably you're someone who became a fan during the beginning of the True Living years, where all of a sudden, pretty quickly you had Sean Monahan, Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, maybe Dougie Hamilton for a good chunk of that, Mark Giordano, and the goaltending was usually kind of okay, but
Brody, Backlund.
Yeah, you had a bunch of exciting players, and right now, I don't think the Flames have bad players. I think they have many good players, but I would just think the talent level they have right now, they don't have anyone that gets you out of your seat. They don't have the ability to play run and gun hockey, and for them to be successful, they basically have to. It was we brought up that just dreadfully boring game they played in Philadelphia during the last back-to-back set on the last road trip. And bless their hearts, that was the type of game they needed to play at that point. They had lost a few in a row. They had looked fairly bad. Like they weren't playing their style of hockey well, nor were they playing many styles of hockey well. And so they buckled down and played their style of game. And, when their offense was not coming as well as it did tonight, they had to play a boring game and basically drag Philly down into the muck. And they won. They have been successful playing that in the past. The last couple of years has basically been, a team realizing that they might not have the high end talent they used to have, adapting very astutely, and at times embracing a style of play that can at times be challenging for a casual fan to watch and get excited about. And if you look at the team, I'd say the players that fans are most excited about, obviously Dustin Wolf. I would say he's the closest thing they have to elite talent. I would almost, on a good night, I think he is an elite talent. Coronado, he's probably their best natural goal scorer. He's pretty exciting. They have, Zane Parekh is an exciting player. They have some guys in the system. If you watch the Wranglers, Matvei Gridin can be exciting. Hunter Bustevich can be exciting. They have guys that have flashes, but I would just argue that they don't really have anyone right now at that Gaudreau or Tkachuk echelon. And as I'm sure many of you in the comments have mentioned, the best way to get those guys is high in the draft. Sometimes you find them in the 4th round because they're small in the USHL and everyone's like, I don't know. But that's, some of the most exciting players in the franchise history are the guys they got early in the 1st round. Just saying.
For sure. The one last thing I'll add just about the Maloney interviews. He kept going back to we're a very hardworking team, and that's what we're all about. And that's great. You obviously want a hardworking team, but you can't just build your entire identity on work ethic, because there are other players on the other teams that also work hard. Other teams work very hard. They also have work ethic. You can't just rely on that as your overall strategy to win hockey games. In my opinion, you have to add more to it. You have to add skill. You have to add, more system play, more elite talent. Like that's what really puts you over the top. You add that along with work ethic, then you're really cooking. So, I get it. They're trying to sell tickets. They're trying to build excitement and say this is a really hardworking team. But at some point, it's like you can't just build your entire identity on that.
Hey, buddies, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.